Drop down, drop down! Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics. This week's video we're going to talk about center of mass shooting in context to reality, not the range. So what does center mass mean? Well, center mass does not necessarily automatically refer to center of the chest, the high thoracic cavity. That's where it's commonly associated with. In fact, when people say center mass, a lot of people think, oh, the chest. No, it's absolutely incorrect. Center mass refers to the center of the target offered or selected. When you look at reality in context, people are moving, people are bending over, people can be crouched, people can be behind cover. You're going to aim for the center of whatever you can hit. And the reason you aim for the center is it offers you the largest margin of error, both up and down, left and right, horizontally and vertically. So if I'm crouched down, center of mass shifts. If I'm turned sideways in defense of a third party, center of mass shifts. It's not going to be automatically that high thoracic cavity. So when I'm creating drills, I try to keep that in mind, keep that in context. A lot of times we train on targets that are just static, they don't move. Well, moving targets are expensive, so that's just one of the training artificialities that we have to deal with. We can create our own, but it does complicate things and it lessens training time, so people aren't as apt to do it. Another one of the training artificialities we're going to have is people are three-dimensional, targets are two-dimensional. I've talked about this in the past. I'm going to continue talking about it because I think the entire training community needs to shift to training on 3D exclusively because we're training to fight people, not paper. So when training for center mass, we have to be aware of reality. People are going to move, they're going to find cover. The bad guy isn't always going to stand still. In fact, most of the time he's not going to stand still. Understood that I can't predict how a gunfight's going to go. No one really can because we have no control over someone else's actions. We can try to steer their actions in a certain direction, but we have absolutely no control over them. We can also never know another person's intent. We may assume the bad guy's going to move this way and he moves the other way. We may assume he's going to stop doing what he's doing when we threaten to shoot him. We may assume he's going to stop doing what he's doing after we've shot at him. We have no control over these things. We need to factor those into our training. In regards to center mass, what I'm going to do in this video is kind of give you a different way to think about things, a little more dynamic way to think about things, and kind of give you some new ideas with some drills and some scenarios you can create in your own training to kind of reflect some of the possible or likely situations you may find yourself in when you're dealing with an actual human lethal threat. Now this is what's generally expected, this is what's generally trained on. For all intents and purposes right now, this is a two-dimensional target. He's faced, he's squared, he's standing up straight, he's not using cover, he's not doing anything. This is an ideal situation. In this situation, center mass would be target offered selected with the most chance for incapacitation. True center mass on this guy is right about here. There's really nothing in that area vital or critical to immediate life function. So we'd probably aim a little higher, the A zone, where you got the heart, the pulmonary arteries, pulmonary veins, the lungs, a lot of really good stuff in this area that can lead to a delayed incapacitation. Up here we have the head. That's our only off switch. That's where our immediate incapacitation is, but it's a very small target. So people, comparatively speaking, to the chest. So people tend to shoot for the high thoracic. So accepted center mass, true center mass, which is somewhere we don't necessarily want to shoot unless that's all we have available to us, and then center mass of the head where we want our off switch, our brainstem, our pons, our medulla oblongata, our midbrain, basically from here to ridge of the forehead. Those are two places we could ideally shoot distance dependent to get our center mass hits on a target that's facing squared, not using cover, not doing anything, standing perfectly still. Alright, so here's our bad guy turned sideways. When might you find yourself in a situation where you're going to take a shot like this? Defense of a third party, defense of a loved one. Maybe he's running to cover. Instead of sidestepping or side shuffling, he just turns and runs sideways. Well, sideways presented to you to get to a piece of cover. Any number of reasons can find yourself in a situation where you may have to take a shot like this. This three-dimensional target represents, I'd say, 140, 150, maybe 160-pound man. Pretty slim dude, torso-wise, target-wise. By turning sideways, where's our center mass now? It does change things. It definitely collapses in your margin of error horizontally. Your margin of error vertically is going to be about the same, but horizontally is what we're usually worried about when it comes to shooting, usually. Now, this is a perfect flank shot. What if he's obliqued? What if he's running somewhere else? What if he's doing any number of things to give you a shot like this. Have you ever shot a target presented in this way? Have you ever shot a threat presented in this way? And I don't mean three-dimensional photos represented on two-dimensional paper. I mean an actual three-dimensional target that can, at will, change its profile just by you or your practice partner, or whoever you're training with, moving it around. These are things that we have to consider. So when it comes to center mass, real center mass is center of the target offered or selected. Well, what about now? Are bad guys using a piece of cover or concealment? If I have a wall, something like that, nice good vertical edge, the only thing I need to hurt you is an arm and an eye. I can get completely behind it, or almost completely behind it like he is, and granted there's some limitations on this because I can't make him bend at the waist like a normal person would unless I stapled him up that way. I got an eye, I got an arm, I got a gun. Possibly unibrow, possibly wearing mascara, not going to judge. Point is, this is my target available to me. Can I take this shot? Will I take this shot? What is center mass on this threat? That's something you have to consider. Will bad guys use cover? Absolutely. I think we need to get out of the idea or out of the common practice of training so much with our bad guys just out in the open. Obviously, there are important reasons why we train in the static. We want to build those fundamentals. But when we get into our advanced skill set, we're honest with ourselves. Once our skill level elevates to that point where we're getting more and more realistic in our training, these are things that need to be introduced and run. Anytime you come to the range, once you're comfortable with your skill set, do 2 or 3 of these drills where the bad guy's using cover. It's definitely a really accurate representation of what can happen. Now, is this cover or concealment? Now, that's going to depend on you, your imagination, the materials you have available to you. Don't shoot at what you can't see. Well, I can see his head. My experience thus far on this earth tells me the head is connected to the neck is connected to the torso, arms come off the torso, so on and so forth. So I can use a little deductive reasoning to figure if his head's here, his body's here. If this is just simple concealment, I can shoot through it if I'm not comfortable taking this really, really small shot. If you remember from the Know Your Limitations drill, we were talking strictly about headshots and hostage situations. This situation here, there is no hostage, so anything he's got in front of him, if I think I can shoot through it, it's fair game. What if I can't shoot through it? What if I'm relatively sure that the rounds aren't going to penetrate, but I still don't have a shot? Can I flank left? Can I flank right? Can I work his cover and use it against him? Cover goes both ways. So if I'm able to flank him far enough off to his left, his cover may put him in a situation where he has to shift in order to continue to engage me. Maybe I can flank all the way around, or maybe I can just put rounds on that piece of cover because I can't get this shot to make him think, okay, he might hit me. I'm going to go ahead and duck completely behind this cover, and that makes you, or gives you the opportunity to rework a new plan, approach a flanking situation, or disengage completely. Now, what about this? Could he be bent over assaulting someone, beating someone with a bat, stabbing someone, any number of things? Maybe he's crouched over, bent at the waist, running to cover, moving from cover, using cover. This is an incredibly difficult shot because of the nature of the angle. It's also difficult because he's sideways, so we have less of a profile to us. But think about if he's head down like this running at you or running to a piece of cover in the same direction you're in. The top of the head, the shoulders, some of the torso would be your only available target. This is a very viable situation. This is a situation that law enforcement encounters pretty frequently because of fights and things of that nature. That split-second decision. Is he just kicking and beating the guy who's on the ground? Is he just towering over him, trying to intimidate him? Is he just threatening him with that knife? Or is he physically assaulting him? That split-second decision. Work these into your drills, your shoot, no shoots. But in this situation, the target definitely compromises our traditional thinking of two-dimensional, functional, and I would like to say convenient shooting. This makes it a little bit more realistic. This is atypical of a situation you'd necessarily expect to encounter if you spent your entire time training on a perfectly squared target. Okay, so what I've done in this video is just kind of show you a little bit more reality-wise, the 3 dimensions dealing with threats, not just shooting paper, training to shoot people. Obviously, there's so many different variables that go into a self-defense situation. These targets, even though they're 3-dimensional, we can't necessarily set them up in the way your threat's going to act. We can't plan for our self-defense shooting. There's certain things we can do, but there's a lot of things that are outside of our control. So we got to train as realistically as possible. But be honest with yourself when you're doing these things. If you're setting up the drill where the guy's using the piece of cover, the piece of concealment, or what have you, and you're missing more than you're getting hits on that eye, maybe you need to slow it down, work on flanking the target, or work on your fundamentals, build that consistency, that speed, and make sure those first couple rounds count. Or, also conversely, consider the fact that what if the objects he's hiding behind is concealment and not cover. Think about ways you can change your positioning instead of trying to force him to change his to get better shots, get better service on the threat. whatever you do, keep it as realistic as possible. If possible, have people set up your drills for you so you're not able to game it, and start incorporating this in your training. I talk about it pretty much every video. You got to have access to a range that allows free movement, allows you to set up drills like this. Try to keep it in thinking, and obviously there's going to be some safety limitations. You can't shoot in 360 degrees, but you can train that way. So definitely incorporate that into your training, and please, everyone, I would just really want everybody to start thinking about making that shift as an industry and as a sport and as a discipline of pushing everything towards 3 dimensions, because that's going to be way more realistic, and I think it's going to benefit everyone as a whole and make us a lot more confident self-defense shooters. I'm Aaron Cowan with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.
Yeah.